I was searching for my birth certificate when I found an adoption file with my sister's name under biological mother. My parents went silent. Then she called and said, "Call me your mother once, and I'll make you regret being born." Before that call, Heather was still my sister. Not a kind one. Not someone I trusted or even spoke to. But that was where she belonged in my understanding of the family. She was 16 years older than me and had hated me for as long as I could remember. I never knew why. When I was younger, I invented explanations. Maybe my birth had strained the family financially. Maybe my parents had spent money on me that could have gone toward her education. Maybe she blamed me for opportunities she lost. Children will create reasons for an adult's cruelty because believing there is a reason feels safer than believing someone hates them for simply existing. The truth began with a passport application. I needed my birth certificate, and Mom told me the family documents were stored inside a metal box in the upstairs closet. I had seen that box before. It held insurance papers, tax records, and old school documents. Nothing that should have changed my life. My birth certificate was near the top. Graham and Diane were listed as my parents, exactly as I expected. I was about to close the box when I noticed a thick brown envelope beneath it. My full name was written across the front in Mom's handwriting. Underneath it were 2 words. Adoption records. At first, I thought the envelope had to concern someone else. Maybe my parents had considered adopting another child. Maybe the documents were incomplete or unrelated to me. Then I saw my date of birth written in the corner. My hands started shaking. Inside was an adoption decree. Graham and Diane were named as my legal parents. Farther down the page was a section identifying my biological mother. Heather. My sister's name. I checked the date, the hospital, and my own name. Everything matched. There was no biological father listed. I sat on the floor with the papers in my lap, staring at Heather's name until the letters stopped looking real. The woman I had spent 19 years calling my sister had given birth to me. The person who could barely stand to look at me was my biological mother. I carried the envelope downstairs. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table. Mom was preparing dinner at the counter. I placed the adoption decree between them. Neither asked where I had found it. Mom stopped moving. Dad looked at the document and closed his eyes. Their reaction answered my question before I asked it. "Tell me Heather isn't my biological mother." Mom turned toward me. "Colin, tell me." Dad pulled out the chair beside him. "You should sit down." "I don't want to sit down." Mom set the towel in her hands on the counter. "She is," she said quietly. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the back of a chair. "So my sister is my mother." "She is your biological mother," Dad said carefully. "But your mom and I know who raised me." My voice came out louder than I intended. "I know who my parents are." I want to know why everyone let me believe Heather was my sister. Mom stepped toward me, but I moved back. Dad began explaining. Heather had been 16 when she became pregnant. She refused to identify my biological father. She would not say whether he was someone from school, someone older, or someone the family knew. My grandparents arranged counseling, but Heather barely spoke. Whenever anyone asked about the pregnancy or the father, she either shut down or became furious. When I was born, she refused to hold me. Graham and Diane offered to raise me. At first, they believed the arrangement might be temporary. They thought Heather might eventually change her mind. She never did. She signed away her parental rights and made it clear she wanted no role in my life. My grandparents adopted me and raised me as their son. Heather became my much older sister. Leah and Jason, whom I had always called my sister and brother, were biologically my aunt and uncle. Several adults in the family knew. I didn't. I lowered myself into the chair. Were you ever going to tell me? Yes. Mom answered immediately. When? She hesitated. That pause hurt more than the answer. We planned to tell you when you were old enough to understand. I'm 19. We know. You had 19 years. Dad leaned forward. We handled it badly. You lied to me. We never lied about loving you. Mom said. I didn't say you didn't love me. My answer stopped her. I pointed at the papers. But you let me believe something about myself that wasn't true. Dad nodded. You have every right to be angry. The strange thing was that I wasn't angry yet. I felt exposed. Every family gathering suddenly seemed different. Every awkward silence had a meaning I had missed. Every time someone commented that Heather and I looked alike, the adults had understood something I didn't. I looked at Mom. Why did she hate me? Her face tightened. We don't know. You must know something. We asked her, Dad said. She refused to explain. Did she ever want me? Mom lowered her eyes. No. The answer came too quickly to soften. She never changed her mind? No. I stared at Heather's name on the page. One of my earliest clear memories of her happened when I was 7. The family had gathered at our house for dinner. Every chair in the living room was taken except for one end of the couch. Heather was sitting at the other end. I sat down carefully, leaving space between us. She moved farther away. Get up. I looked at her. What? I said, get away from me. Leah told her to stop. Heather ignored her. Why does he always have to be here? I remember looking around the room because I thought I had missed something. It was my house. Another time, I walked behind Heather's chair, and she shoved me away because I was standing too close. She called me disgusting. She told me nobody wanted me. She said Mom and Dad only kept me because they felt sorry for me. The worst incident happened when I was 8. Mom and Dad were out for the afternoon. Leah and Jason were home with me when Heather arrived unexpectedly. She told them to lock me outside. Jason thought she was joking. She wasn't. Heather said they should leave me there until I understood I didn't belong in the family. Then she said everyone would be happier if I ran away and never came back. Leah called Mom. When my parents returned, Heather was still shouting. Dad told her she was no longer welcome around me. Heather accused him of choosing me over his own daughter. Dad answered, I'm choosing a child who has done nothing to you. After that, contact became rare. For years, I believed my parents had protected me from a cruel older sister. Now I knew they had been protecting me from the woman who gave birth to me. Did she ever ask about me? I said. Mom and Dad exchanged a glance. Sometimes she asked whether you knew. Mom admitted. That's not asking about me. No, Dad said. It isn't. Did she ever ask if I was okay? Either of them answered. I left the table and locked myself in my room. That night, I replayed every strange moment I could remember. Once, an older relative said Heather, and I had the same smile. Heather left the room so quickly that her chair tipped over. Everyone went silent. At the time, I thought she was insulted by the comparison. Now I wondered whether she had been afraid I would notice. Another question kept returning. What had happened to Heather when she was 16? There was no father listed. She had refused to name him. She had refused to discuss the pregnancy. Maybe someone had hurt her. Maybe I reminded her of him. The possibility made me feel sorry for her. Then I remembered being 7 years old while she told me nobody wanted me. Whatever had happened before I was born, I had not caused it. The next morning, I asked Leah to meet me at a coffee shop. She knew the moment she saw my face. Her shoulders dropped. You found out? I sat across from her. How long have you known? My whole life. Leah had been 13 when I was born. She remembered Heather being pregnant. She remembered Mom and Dad bringing me home. And you never told me. It wasn't my decision. You're 32. She flinched. I know. You could have told me. I was afraid. Of Heather? Of what the truth would do to you. I leaned back. Everyone keeps saying they were protecting me. We thought we were. Who was protecting me from finding out the entire family had kept this from me? She looked down at her coffee. Then she told me my parents had nearly revealed the truth when I was 12. Someone in the extended family mentioned it to Heather. Heather called Dad and threatened to tell me herself if they went through with it. She said she would make sure I understood exactly how unwanted I had been. My parents decided I was too young to handle whatever she might say. They reconsidered when I was 16. Heather heard about that too. She sent Mom a message saying that if I learned the truth and tried to contact her, she would make me regret asking questions. So my parents delayed it again. They kept waiting for a safer time. There was never going to be one. Did you agree with them? I asked. At first. And later? Leah looked toward the window. Later, I thought it had gone on too long. Then why didn't you tell me? I was afraid it would destroy the family. I stared at her. So everyone protected the family by letting me be the only person who didn't understand it. Tears formed in her eyes. I'm sorry. I believed her. I still wasn't ready to forgive her. 2 nights later, Heather found out I knew. I never learned who told her. By then, too many relatives were calling one another. Just after midnight, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. I know what you found. Do not contact me. I knew it was her. I should have blocked the number. Instead, I typed the question that had consumed me since finding the documents. Who is my biological father? The phone rang almost immediately. Heather had never called me before. I stared at the screen until the final second, then answered. For several moments, neither of us spoke. I could hear her breathing. You had no right to ask me that, she said. Her voice sounded exactly as I remembered it. Cold and irritated, as though I had entered a room without permission. I'm not asking for his address. You're not asking for anything. I have a right to know who he is. No, you don't. He's my biological father. That doesn't make him part of your life. I didn't say it did. She exhaled sharply. You have parents. Ask them whatever you want. They don't know. Then nobody knows. You know. She went silent. I could hear a television playing somewhere behind her. I lowered my voice. Did someone hurt you? The silence changed. For one moment, I thought she might answer. Then her voice hardened. Never ask me that again. I'm trying to understand. You don't get to understand. Why? Because this was never about you. My whole life has been shaped by it. You already took enough from me. What did I take? She refused to answer. I asked again. Her anger rose. She said seeing me made her feel sick. She told me she had spent 19 years wishing the family had allowed her to forget I existed. Then she warned me never to call her my mother. I wasn't planning to. That stopped her. Maybe she expected me to beg for a relationship so she could reject me. I didn't. You gave birth to me, I said. But you were never my mother. She laughed bitterly. You think Diane is your mother? She raised me. They made every decision for me. You signed the adoption papers. You don't know what happened. You're right. I don't. You refused to tell me. For a second, her breathing became uneven. Then her voice went cold again. Call me your mother once, and I'll make you regret being born. The line went dead. I sat in the darkness with the phone still pressed to my ear. Her hatred had always hurt. Now it felt heavier because I finally understood where it came from. I showed the messages to my parents the next morning. Mom looked ill. Dad called Heather from the garage. I could hear him through the door. He told her never to contact me again. Heather accused him of controlling the story and turning the family against her. Dad reminded her that she had signed the adoption documents, and repeatedly demanded that she never be expected to act as my parent. She hung up. I blocked her number. For a few days, everyone acted as though that ended the problem. It didn't. The truth changed the way some relatives spoke to me. People who had always called Diane my mom suddenly referred to her as my grandmother. They called Leah my aunt and Jason my uncle. Every correction felt like someone was taking my family apart and rebuilding it with labels that meant nothing to me. A few weeks later, we attended a family lunch. I mentioned something Mom had said. My great-aunt Wendy interrupted me. You mean your grandmother? The table went quiet. I looked at her. No. I mean my mom. Biologically, Diane is your grandmother. I understand biology. I only think using the correct terms might help you process everything. Correct according to who? The family tree. The family tree didn't raise me. She shifted in her seat. I'm not trying to upset you. Then stop correcting me. Mom placed a hand on my arm. I pulled away without thinking. Wendy continued. Heather is still your mother whether you're comfortable with it or not. My chair scraped against the floor as I stood. No. Heather gave birth to me. Everyone stared. She is not my mother. My voice shook, but I kept going. I pointed toward Diane. She stayed awake when I was sick. She took me to school. She attended every event I was part of, even when I barely had a role. Then I looked at Graham. He taught me to drive. He waited up when I came home late. He was the person outside my bedroom when I was scared. I looked back at Wendy. They are my parents. Leah and Jason are my sister and brother. A document doesn't erase 19 years. No one responded. I left before my voice could break completely. I sat in my parents' car with the doors locked. Mom came outside a minute later. She stood beside the open passenger window. "I'm sorry," she said. "For Wendy?" "For all of it." I stared through the windshield. "I'm not angry that you raised me. I know. I'm not even angry that you protected me from Heather. But you're angry we waited. I don't know what I am." That was the truth. If I had learned the truth when I was 8, Heather's cruelty might have damaged me in ways I never recovered from. At 19, I could understand that adults carried pain children couldn't see. But protecting me from one kind of hurt had created another. Mom leaned closer to the window. "We were afraid you would stop seeing us as your parents." "I don't." She looked up. "You're still my mom." Her face collapsed. I unlocked the door. She got in and hugged me. It didn't solve anything. It only meant I still loved her while I was hurt. Dad apologized that night. He didn't defend himself. He said he and Mom had focused so much on preventing the worst possible outcome that silence began to feel like the only safe choice. They waited for me to be older. Then they waited for Heather to become less hostile. Neither happened in the way they hoped. I asked every question I could think of. Most had no answers. Heather never identified my biological father. There were no photographs, letters, or medical records beyond what was documented when I was born. Half of my biological history was a blank space guarded by someone who refused to let me near it. I ordered a DNA test. When it arrived, I placed it on my desk. It remained unopened. Taking it might lead me to my biological father. It might also introduce another person who never wanted to know me. I wasn't ready to find out. Heather hasn't contacted me again. Occasionally, a relative tells me she is angry that everyone has turned me against her. I don't know what version of the story she tells herself. Maybe she believes the family chose me over her. Maybe believing that is easier than accepting how she treated a child who had no control over the circumstances of his birth. Some relatives think I should forgive her because she was 16. They say she must have gone through something terrible. Maybe she did. When I picture her frightened, pregnant, and refusing to speak, I feel sorry for her. Then I remember myself at 7, pressed against the arm of a couch while she told me to get away from her. I feel sorry for that child too. I don't know what happened to Heather. I don't know who my biological father is. I don't know whether she looks at me and sees someone who hurt her, a life she lost, or a choice she never wanted. Whatever she sees, it isn't me. My relationship with my parents is different now. Not ruined. Different. Sometimes I look at them and remember how long they kept the truth from me. Other times, Dad calls to make sure I arrived somewhere safely, or Mom saves food because she knows I'll be hungry later, and they are simply my parents again. I haven't fully forgiven them. I haven't stopped loving them either. I still call them Mom and Dad. I still call Leah and Jason my sister and brother. When I speak about Heather, I usually call her my sister too. I know that isn't biologically accurate. But the word mother feels wrong. Her name appears beside biological mother on a document stored inside a metal box. That is a fact. But facts and relationships are not always the same thing. Heather gave birth to me. Diane and Graham raised me. For now, Heather's number remains blocked. The DNA kit remains unopened. And whenever someone asks whether I have an older sister, I still say yes. Because calling Heather my mother would give her a title she spent 19 years proving she never earned.